Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this alternating fishtail wirework bracelet, and this is what it looks like. So you have, in this case I'm using both silver and copper wire to get a nice effect to it. You can really see the design of the braid there. So basically it's kind of similar to a fishtail technique of a braid, but just with a little twist to it. So if you want to learn how to make this, then keep watching. So it's these materials here that we're going to be using. First of all, here I have two different gauges of wire. They're both regular round coated copper wire. The silver one here is a 0.6mm, and this is going to be used pretty much as it is. And then this here, the copper one, is a 0.4mm. This I'm going to be using twisted. So I'm going to twist two pieces of this wire together and use it alongside the silver wire here. And then finally here I have my ribbon ends. These are going to finish off the piece nicely, and then alongside them I'm going to be using my clasps, so my extended chain, lobster claw clasp, and then jump rings to attach it all. So let's get it all together and let's get started. So then the lengths of wire that we're going to need is first of all 12 lengths here of a 0.6mm wire, the silver one in my case, or about 40 centimeters each. And just make sure your wires are nice and straight, so at least it's fine if there's a curve, but just make sure there's no kinks or bends in it. And then we'll need 6 lengths here of our twisted wire, and again about 40 centimeters, and this is the copper one in my case. Now what I did to achieve these is I took one length of 1 meter of the 0.4mm, and then I folded that in half, and then I twisted that together, so the two ends are the same wire, and then that will shorten the length a little bit when you twist it, depending how much you twist it. And then I used that length here, and that's about the same length as the other ones. And then what I've done is I've taken all my lengths of wire and then put them into this spring clamp here. So I'm just using this to keep them fastened together at the beginning and make it easier to start out working with it. But then I've also organised them in a certain way. So basically what I've made are little groups. So each group here consists of 2 lengths of the silver wire and then 1 of the twisted. So I have the twisted in the middle with 1 silver one on each side of that. So that's one group, and I have 6 of them all the way across, so all the 6 groups here, which is then using all the wires, are laid flat next to each other, making sure that twisted wire on each group is in the middle of it. And that's then the setup here, because that's how we want the wires to continue to be throughout as well. And then when I have all the wires ready here in my spring clamp, then I just need to kind of separate them a little bit. So I'm going to go straight down the middle. So I have 3 groups on one side and 3 on the other, and I'm just going to pull them apart a little bit. So just out to the side there. So you're going to have basically 3 of your groups going towards one side, and then the other 3 towards the other side. And this is just to kind of put them into position so we can more comfortably start making the braid and have it then also sit nicely. So just something a bit like that. And then we need to get going with the braid here. So it's really quite simple. So what I'm going to start doing, I'm going to start from our right side. Doesn't matter what side you start from. So whatever's comfortable for you. And I'm always going to be working in groups. So these groups that I've made with the 3 wires, the twisted in the middle and the 2 silver on the outside, I'm always going to work with that as if it was one length. But I've just got the 3 lengths together as one. So make sure of that, and also make sure that they're always laying flat next to each other with that twisted in the middle. So keep an eye on that throughout. So I'm going to take the very outer one here, bring it across the other 2 in that same group in towards the middle, also making sure the wires there in the other 2 groups that I'm going over are laying flat still, just like that, and especially the one that I'm moving here. So it can be a little bit fiddly. The beginning is always the most fiddly because obviously everything is still kind of loose, but once we get going with the braid and we get into the rhythm of it, it's going to be much easier as we go. So bring that over, and then basically that's going to be in the middle, like that. Then we need to go to the other side, and then again I'm taking the outer group from that, and in this case I'm going to go under, still towards the middle. I'm going to take that, make sure it's flat underneath the 2 groups on the same side there. Keep it flat along the way, and I just kind of use my fingers to make sure to kind of flatten it out, so make sure that twisted wire stays in the middle. So I'm going underneath those 2 other groups right next to it, but then I need to go over this other group that's now in the middle, the one we brought in first from the opposite side. I'm bringing it over that one and then over to the opposite side. just like that. And then once I've done this, we're now basically back, you could say, to the starting position where we have 3 groups on each side. So there we go, and that's basically the movement. So now it's just a matter of continuing this and then finding your rhythm as well. So just to show you again, go back to the other side. So always go to the opposite side than the one you just used. So I'm going to take on the right side here the very outer one, and then we need to bring that over the next 2, and that includes the one that we just brought over because that's now part of this side. Take it over, make sure it stays flat, bring it in towards the middle, and then it comes in the middle there, where we're then waiting for the one from the other side, making sure the other 2 groups that I just went over are still flat. And then I go to the opposite side, take the very outer one, and this one needs to go under the next 2, so that then includes the one that's previously brought over from the opposite side. So just kind of keep remembering that, but it's always having the 3 groups, the 2 sides where there's 3 groups on each side. So go under those 2, but then over the one that we just brought from the opposite side, because that's what we did before, and then in towards the middle. And now how tight you want your braid really is up to you as well. You can keep it quite open or quite loose, or you can get it as tight as possible, but that really also depends how you then work with it. So it's a matter of finding your rhythm. So I like to have mine quite as tight as possible really, depending on the design. For this one I would like that, so I do want it tighter than this, but I always kind of allow a little bit at the beginning to find the rhythm until you get into the proper position as well to hold your wires, where you can then tighten in. What can also help is the groups that you're going over and under, kind of push them in the opposite direction to where you need them to go. So say for this one here, I'm going to bring over, so I could push the 2 that I'm going over down just a little bit to create space for this to lay tighter towards them. The same thing on the other side, that goes underneath, so I can push them up a little bit, just gently, to create that extra space, and that makes the braid tighter as well. So that's basically the technique of it, like I said, and you can really play around with how tight and how the look you want it to be. So just keep going like this to use the technique to use up the rest of your wires. I then kept braiding here till I reached the point where I don't really have much wire left to use comfortably, and then this is the braid. So you can see the technique is kind of like similar to a fishtail braid, where we have 2 sides, we'll bring over from one side to the other, and then the other side to the first one again. And the difference is here on one side we go opposite than the other side. So like I said, on the right I'm taking it over the top, but then from the left side I'm going behind. But otherwise it's very similar to a fishtail braid. But then this is what it looks like. So all this has to do now is finish off the ends and obviously have the final length that we want for the bracelet as well. So then to finish off the end here, you just want to choose the section of braid that you want to use. But then I'm going to get my flush cutters here, so just some wire cutters or flush cutters, and we need to obviously cut off the excess, because what I'm going to be using are these ribbon ends here. To finish them off quite nicely and professionally, we can then use the loops to add whatever clasp we want to. So what we need to do is cut off the excess. So I need to choose the first point where I want to cut it on one end, and I just want to cut it straight across here. So just take some wires at a time and go straight across to the other side. So just like that, and we have a nice neat edge where we're then going to use a ribbon end here. You can see it's going to fit really nicely, also not having any bulk inside of it because we made the end nice and straight. And what I'm then just going to do as well, add a bit of glue to this. So I'm going to take my E6000. I just like to do this because it adds extra security and durability as well. And I'm going to take a bit on a toothpick here just to help apply it. Doesn't need to be too much. Also the good thing about this glue is nice and strong, and also it dries clear. So I'm going to then just put a little bit inside of the ribbon end here. Make sure it goes all the way up and down the sides of the inside. Doesn't have to be too much, like I said, but just a decent amount. Because if you add too much, it's just going to come spilling out anyway, because we're going to clamp this down. So like that. And then also what I have left on my toothpick, I like to just go over the end here and just get it right in between the wires. Because then when we bond the two things together, 2 pieces here, and we let the glue dry, it's going to really adhere nicely to each other. So just put the excess glue on the end, and then I'm going to take the ribbon end here, just place it on the end of the piece, the braid. Then we need to clamp it down, and what I like to do is hold my piece in my hand and then put a finger on each side just to help hold it steady so it stays in the position where I want it to. And then I take some flat nose pliers and start clamping it down. Now I just like to gently go in, start in one place, and gradually squeeze it further and further from side to side. And then when I feel like I'm really close to have it all the way down, I just take my fingers off, make sure it's stayed in the middle, and if it hasn't, you can just move it a little bit. And then I just go and do a final squeeze and do it nice and tight. And I also always like to go in from the sides just to kind of close up the ends there. And if any glue does come spilling out, you can just wipe it off just like that. And then obviously let the glue dry, but then you have that little loop that you can attach your findings to. What you would then do, that's the one end finish off. Obviously you need to do the same thing on the other end. All you want to just make sure to do is measure how long you need your piece to be. So measure from that end and then find out where you need to cut on the other end. Obviously taking into account as well the class that you're going to use is going to add some length to it. So that could be anything from ½ inch to an inch depending on what you're using. So finish off the other end however long you need to be in the exact same way. So now that I've then finished off both ends here, and I've also just attached my findings, all I have to do is shape it so we can wear it as well, obviously. It can be a bit difficult to wear this. So you can either fold this around something that has the size and shape that you want it to be, or you can just use your hands and fingers. So what I like to do is just go in and start kind of from the middle-ish and then work my way outward and just gently put curves into it. So don't go into one place and make a big bend, that'll put it out of shape, but just gradually go back and forth and put more and more of a curve into it and have the ends basically then move towards each other. And what I personally prefer to do is make it a bit more of an oval shape rather than round, because I find that that works better for a bracelet. It sits nicer on the wrist, I think. It doesn't really roll around in the same way as a round one would, and also it's more comfortable. So you're basically just working the ends together towards each other there on the back, you could say. And getting the bracelet more and more in a nice shape here, nice wearable shape. Just gently working your way, making nice curves instead of a big bend like I said or anything. We're gradually getting closer, we're almost there. And then obviously you can use your clasp for the extra security. So that's then what it looks like. There you have your nice shape and you have your nice braid there. It's a little bit different. And obviously I've just used both the silver and the copper there to give it a nice interest and a nice design to it. So that's what it looks like. So it's a pretty simple and easy braid to make. You just gotta kind of find the rhythm when you're making it. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and thank you very much for watching.